Alright guys, welcome back to another Fortnite video, and in this one, oh man, we have so much fun stuff to talk about. I've been wanting to do this video for a little bit now, but we haven't had like a ton of secret things in game to go over, but finally we are getting those things. But basically, we're going to be going through a bunch of theories and clues that point towards the Fortnite map being destroyed by the road trip skin. That's right guys, like nobody has been talking about road trip, but we're going to be getting it next week, and that also means that we're getting close to season 6. We got to start theorizing about what exactly is going to happen, and really nobody has been talking about it like they did in season 5, like with the rocket stuff, with the villains, with the theories on all of that. But there is a ton of stuff to go over. So yeah guys, if you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button down below. Always helps me out so much and encourages me to make more of these. And on top of that, be sure to comment your favorite item from season 5. For me, I think it might have to be Drift's pickaxe. It's just such a dope pickaxe. I love the effects of it, besides it like sounding like bullets are whizzing by sometimes, but it is a super dope one. But yeah, without further ado here, let's jump on into it. And also, I do real quick want to say that these are just theories. They're not confirmed, but just like with season 5, it's fun to try and guess what exactly is going to happen. And I think a lot of these clues do have a very, very likely chance of hinting towards what exactly is going to be happening soon in the game and with season 6. So form your own opinions on that, but let's jump on into it with the first clue that I want to go over or talk about. And this is a clue we went over in a previous video, so if you do remember it, this is just a reminder because it's super important to the brand new clues that I found that are coming up in just a second. But to find this little clue, it's actually a secret kind of code if you go over to the Viking's village and find the, sail for the Viking boat. Now, if you take a look at the boat, it's obviously got the llamas on it, which is pretty dope, but there are these two symbols in between them. Now, these symbols actually have a ton of meaning to them because this is actually part of the runic alphabet, or like a Viking type alphabet, with these two letters, the backward Z and the sort of H, both having some significant meaning. Now, what exactly do they mean? Well, the first of which, as I can tell, is like the little backward Z. This is pronounced Sowilo or something like that, and usually means something along the lines of sun, thunderbolt, and honor, which by itself is super interesting, especially when you pair it with the second letter, which goes by the name of Hagalas and usually has the meaning hail, storm, and air. Now then, those two together have a super important meaning to the future of Fortnite in season 6, but we'll circle back to what those mean in just a few minutes because we first need to go over just Drift himself and what has been happening to him in the loading screens. So yeah guys, you may not remember, but Drift isn't actually from the Fortnite world. He's actually from real life, like what you and me live in. Technically, that's like his story in the game, because as you may remember, when they had the season 5 announcement trailer, they showed Drift in real life at the burger that showed up in the desert again in real life. Then after that, a rift teleported him into game, and that is how we got Drift in game. So that by itself is really weird because it asks questions like, how is he going to get back? How can he live in a world that isn't actually his own world? And that leads to some other stuff that I think we need to talk about in just a sec here. But on top of that, looking at the loading screens here, he starts off super happy. Obviously, he's with Bright Bomber a ton. We've been theorizing that Bright Bomber and him kind of have a thing going on. I mean, it's pretty obvious. They're in every single loading screen so far, at least that we've seen. We obviously have the one coming up with week 7, but that one you'll already have road trip, so it isn't really helpful. But as you can see, he goes along here and he seems happy, but there's something about the week 6 loading screen that just doesn't add up. He seems kind of, sad. Now maybe he's not, but something about him not having his mask on. I can't even tell if Bright Bomber is smiling or kind of like, confused. There's also Cuddle Team Leader over here staring at him, which is a little weird. But wouldn't it make sense that he would be sad? I mean, he's not in his world. He's not around his family. He's not around his friends. He has no idea how he would ever even get back to seeing them again. So he may not ever see them again. So yeah, but what does that have to do with road trip in season 6? Well, it could possibly mean that he is going to try and get back to his real life world, and that might take somebody else helping him, maybe like road trip. And yeah, we'll circle back to this with some other clues coming up. But on top of that, I do also want to say that the rifts are shrinking in the game. This is the second clue I want to go over, but as you may have noticed, and we talked about this a little bit in a previous video, if you look up towards the sky, there's no doubt that the rifts are getting smaller. With every update, they're slightly shrinking, and I mean, you can tell especially with the one above Paradise Palms-ish, or actually, I don't know if that one even like fully disappeared, but it's kind of over like Dusty even. The rifts are for sure shrinking, which also goes in hand with Drift, talking about that his chance of getting back to the real life world with the rifts are shrinking as well. He's gonna have to do something and decide whether or not not he wants to stay in the Fortnite world or go back to the real life world. And again, he might try and get help from somebody, or that might in turn bring somebody else in, which is the road trip skin. So that stuff is pretty interesting on its own. But again, we'll circle back to all of that when we go over the other clues that point towards the Fortnite map getting destroyed, because it all ties together, guys. So going back to that first clue I went over with the Viking sail and the letters on it, when you combine those two runic letters, the ones that mean like hail, storm, and then like sun and thunderbolt, and also they went by the name Hagalas and Sewilo, together they generally have a meaning of something similar to Ragnarok. That is right, guys. That is actually huge, because if you don't know what Ragnarok is, it's basically like, there's different ways of looking at it in Norse mythology, but generally it's like the destruction of their kingdom. Basically like everything gets turned on its head. And actually, if you saw Thor Ragnarok, the movie, it's a pretty good example of it. Things get destroyed, they have to leave and stuff like that. But specifically what it has to do with the Hagalas and Sewilo symbols, the main one is actually the Hagalas symbol, but since that has to do with like the sun, there's actually a poem in Norse mythology that says something along the Fenrik wolf devouring the sun and causing Ragnarok, something along those lines. Again, I'm not an expert in Norse mythology, so if any of you are, correct me if I'm wrong, but that definitely does connect. And then you can also bring in Sewilo with that, like a storm helping to destroy stuff. So that definitely is something that I think is going to be happening to the map soon. We're going to be experiencing Ragnarok on the map. And again, how does that tie in with Drift? Well, let's talk about something else first on top of that, but that is just that we obviously have a skin named Ragnarok. I mean, that would be a pretty obvious clue if it is indeed pointing towards this happening in the map itself. And there is a possibility that the things that have already been happening on the map are technically Ragnarok, but I don't really think that's the case. And again, I have a clue for that coming up. But since we have the Ragnarok skin, since we have these symbols and things like that, I have a feeling that the road trip skin is a connection between these and Drift. Now, how exactly could those be connected? Well, that is the confusing part. I don't exactly know. And there's two different ways I think it could go, but it could have something to do with Thor. Those symbols talked about like hail, storm, sun, and thunderbolt, which has some meaning with Thor. So it is 100% possible that the secret skin could be him. It would honestly be pretty dope. It doesn't really fit in with his like cloaked look that we can at least tell from the silhouette, but who knows? Epic Games is usually pretty creative with how they design stuff, but the meaning of that could definitely make sense. On the other hand, the road trip skin could be evil, and he could then be the one to cause Ragnarok. There's a lot of other characters in Norse mythology that I'm pretty sure are evil. Like, what's that guy in the Thor Ragnarok? The big giant fire guy. Maybe he's the road trip skin. Now, on top of that, maybe he could help Drift get back to his world by reopening a rift or something, like Thor with his thunder. We don't exactly know how the rifts even work in this game, but it is 100% a possibility. It's not out of the realm of like crazy stuff that Epic Games has done. But again, the road trip clearly has to do with Drift. He's been in every single one, and clearly he's going to want to go back to his own world, so it's 100% likely that the road trip skin will help him do that. Now, if he then brings Ragnarok along with him trying to do that, that's where things start to get a little bit crazy here, because we could see the map getting destroyed, shifted in different ways, and I mean, really anything's possible with that. Some of the theories I had on that itself is that like the waters are going to rise around the island itself. We're going to see a lot more get covered in water. You might even have like Dusty Divot just become this super big lake, which would be interesting how that would work. Would you be able to go like underwater for a bit? Would you lose health if you stayed too far underwater? That actually could be a very interesting mechanic. I could see that coming into the game. But on top of that, you could also have like earthquakes splitting different parts of the map, like Anarchy Acres is suddenly destroyed and turned into this like big Grand Canyon type thing. I don't exactly know, but you could also even have those earthquakes affect like Tilted Towers and it becomes like a destroyed version of Tilted Towers. You could even have the mountains change around on that side of the map. We haven't had a ton of things change over there, so that could be open to a bunch of things getting shifted with earthquakes and stuff. On top of that, you could also even have lava flowing through the map that if you get knocked into it, you suddenly get eliminated. These are the type of things that I think Epic Games would add technically to sort of spice the game up, and they would fit in with this Ragnarok theme. But yeah, then on top of that, what is the final clue I wanted to talk about? You know I would save it till the end because it's super important, but that, guys, is the bunker. This bunker right here. It is 100% likely that this has some super big meaning to the Season 6. Now, how exactly, you might be asking? Well, just think about it for a sec. This bunker was added in Season 5, but never changed. We always looked around for changes with it, but nothing ever happened. It never opened. The sort of just like thing inside of it never changed. So I think we got faked out a little bit because it didn't have to do with Season 5. It had to do with Season 6. They were preparing so far ahead of time that the people who made the bunker were preparing for Ragnarok, the destruction of the Fortnite world. Yeah, these guys were looking that far ahead. said. But doesn't that just make sense? I could see this finally opening up and being an area on the map when things start to change for Season 6. But on top of that, there's also this little bit of writing on the back, which unfortunately does not mean anything. It's kind of a myth that this thing is a clue, but I actually was able to prove it wrong, because the asset that was used for this bunker is also used in the Gus racetrack, the brand new building over here. If you look on the very top of it, you can find the same exact model for that, I don't know, door, and it has the same symbol on the back. So unfortunately, that does not mean anything, but the fact that the bunker is still there itself does in fact mean something. It doesn't have to do with the door itself. It has to do with the bunker and the idea of the bunker. There's also even the chance that the bunker contains something to combat, like Ragnarok happening. I just have a feeling that they're going to be adding something there, whether or not that's like another rocket. Could you imagine? Probably not a rocket, but maybe like a teleporter, maybe something even Drift could find out about, go into the bunker. I mean, the last loading screen, the one that was at Risky Reels, is pretty close to the bunker, to be honest, so maybe he'll make his way over there, discover like a teleporter, jump in it, and try and get back to real life. I don't know, guys, that one's pretty out there, but the stuff before that with Ragnarok, the bunker, possibly even Thor coming around, I think that's all very likely, and probably the best guess that we have. But again, guys, that's just a theory. Wait, that's not my line. But yeah, it is just a theory, guys. This is all for fun. This is all trying to guess what exactly is going to be happening. And I mean, considering we haven't had a ton of clues compared to like the previous seasons. I mean, looking at Season 4, you had like secret codes in the ground. You had like the meteors show up under the map. We had way more stuff to go over in previous seasons, but I still think this is the likely direction that they're going to be going with what we've been given. So if you guys enjoyed the video, comment your thoughts down below. As always, be sure to subscribe for more fun videos like this coming up in the near future. And on top of that, be sure to check out some of my previous videos here, such as on the left, going through a bunch of leaked things that were added in the files, and then on the right, the full Week 6 challenges guide. But other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.